Hi, I'm Mike Porter. Welcome to the Arcane Station Case Files. Today we're breaking down four terms that are often used interchangeably but describe very different forms of canine humanoids. The Wolfman, the Werewolf, the Dogman, and the Cynocephali. These figures appear across horror cinema, literature, folklore, cryptid reports, and ancient historical accounts and texts. While they all share canine features, the visual form, behavior, and cultural role of each one is distinct. This case file is focused on classification and comparison, what each form looks like, how it behaves, and where it appears in folklore or reported encounters. We begin with the Wolfman. Now this is the most human form in this comparison. Visually, the Wolfman maintains a largely human body structure. The torso, shoulders, and posture are recognizably human. The face is built on a human base, though it's covered in fur and altered with pronounced brows, fangs, and sharper features. The classic example of this is the 1941 Universal Studios Wolfman with the actor Lon Chaney Jr. and the makeup effects by Jack Pierce, and this is iconic. In this design, the creature still reads as a man or a human first, and then as a beast second. The hands remain human in proportion, though they do have claws. The legs are typically human rather than having fully digigrade legs, and what a digigrade leg is that it appears to have a backward bending knee, such as like on a dog and a cat, but that's actually the heel or the ankle that's located higher up on the leg, while the toes are the pieces that touch the ground. So that high up bend, that's an ankle and a heel, and then the toes are the only thing that touch the ground. The transformation to beast in this instance is present, but the final result is closer to an enhanced human predator rather than a true wolf-like creature. This form became one of the foundational images of modern cinema's werewolves, but visually is distinct enough that it deserves its own category. The Wolfman is best understood as the human side of the spectrum. Films like The Curse of the Werewolf, the 2025 Wolfman, Ginger Snaps, and even Teen Wolf showcase this type of creature. The werewolf moves much further towards the animal end of the spectrum, with some of them being absolutely animal end of the spectrum. Traditional folklore defines the werewolf as a human who transforms into a wolf or a wolf-like creature, often through a curse, a ritual, a bite, or some sort of supernatural affliction. What separates the werewolf visually from the wolfman is the extent of the transformation. Here, the face becomes a true snout or muzzle. The body often adopts digigrade legs. Because of the legs, the spine arches forward and the arms lengthen, and the entire silhouette becomes more bestial. A strong modern example of this is An American Werewolf in London, with makeup effects by Rick Baker, which presents a far more lupine morphology. The werewolf is not simply a hairy man, it's a transformed body whose anatomy is substantially altered, sometimes with immense physical pain in the transformation process. Films like Bad Moon, Cabin in the Woods, The Wolf of Snow Hollow, and Underworld have transformations into a standing beast-like creature. The Company of Wolves and Blood and Chocolate both have the final transformation turned into an actual wolf form, very similar to what you see in the Twilight series. Now there's the Dogman, which differs from both forms because it's not usually treated as a transformed human, but as an encountered entity or cryptid. Some say evil. This is where folklore and modern witness reports intersect. In reported sightings, Dogman descriptions often include all the visuals similar to a werewolf with the following exceptions: longer ears, longer muzzle with exaggerated canines, glowing or reflective eyes, feelings of dread or a feeling that this being is evil. And it often incites mortal fear without it actually attacking, and some think that it may be feeding off of that fear. The creature is often described as more canine than lupine, with some saying it looked like a German Shepherd or a Doberman facially, which is why many witnesses and researchers distinguish it from a classic werewolf image. The best known modern example is the Michigan Dogman phenomenon. Witnesses report seeing what appears to be an existing creature without transformation, and without the feeling that there is some sort of humanity within the creature. This is why Dogman is most commonly discussed in the cryptid research areas rather than folklore studies. Films like Dog Soldiers, The Howling, and Professor Lupine from the Harry Potter series provides a visual language that's very similar to what many witnesses sketch or talk about when they discuss their encounters. So those creatures are explicitly werewolves in the film, but they look visually very close to what people are encountering. So for the purposes of this case file, Dogman sits firmly in the cryptid encounter category rather than folklore. And then we have the final category, which is the most historically unusual. Cynocephali refers to a dog-headed humanoid being described in ancient and medieval texts. Unlike the previous forms, these are not generally treated as monsters. Instead, they're often described as a people. Historical accounts portray cynocephaly as clothed, organized in societies, speaking languages, conducting trade, and traveling. Sometimes they're even used as mercenaries in warfare. This makes them fundamentally different from the beast-like figures we've been discussing. These are not transformation myths. These are not cryptid ambush encounters. They're depictions of a civilized dog-headed race. Ancient Greek, Indian, and medieval travel accounts frequently mention these distant lands populated by dog-headed people. Cynocephaly is not about animalistic behavior. It's about a civilization, a culture, and a society. What makes it the most human in behavior, though, is despite having the most visibly non-human head structure, it does have the most human actions as a civilization. An example of this would be Anubis or St. Christopher. So the clearest way to understand this spectrum is by separating appearance, origin, and behavior. The Wolfman is visually human forward. The werewolf is a transformed beast. The Dogman is an encountered cryptid, and the Cynocephaly represents dog-headed civilized people from historical accounts. These categories may overlap in popular discussion, but visually and conceptually, they describe very different beings. Alright, so this has been an Arcane Station Case File. Some questions remain unanswered until a creature is captured, but for now we will close this file. Tune in next month for the next case file.